After funding their lives in silence, my dad called me worthless. Now he's jobless, broke, and I hold every key to their future. My name is Liam. I'm 29, and until last year, I believed I understood what family meant. Not the Hallmark card variety, but the kind you built your life around, even if it means shouldering more than your fair share of the burden. I've always been the quiet one, the responsible son, the one who sends flowers on birthdays and takes up the slack when no one else notices it. But I didn't grow up expecting to be the backbone of a family that treated me as if I were disposable. That section happened softly, almost quietly, like right under the floorboards, which you don't notice until everything crashes in. Growing up, I was the middle child. My older brother Adam was the golden boy, varsity football, charming, and always surrounded by a crowd. My younger sister Mia was a princess from the minute she was born. And me? I was the one who had B+ marks and was informed I was not performing to my full potential. I honestly didn't mind. I kept my head down, earned a scholarship, moved out, and eventually founded my own tiny IT firm, which miraculously took off after 3 hard years of ramen, 16-hour days, and being ghosted by every investor I presented to. The weird thing is that when I was struggling, they remained silent. But when the money arrived, I reconnected with my family. It started little. My father asked if I might help cover Adam's remaining car payments, just until he was promoted. Then came Mia's private college tuition, which was only partially covered by financial help. My mother required assistance with roof repairs, then heating system upgrades, and finally, the kitchen redesign she had always desired. And just like that, I was paying for 3 families while receiving texts like, "Can you VMO me for the groceries?" Initially I didn't mind. I was glad I could help. I even convinced myself that I was creating something, a legacy even. I hoped that one day I'd be able to say that I improved the lives of those I cared about. But something about the way they regarded it as if it was an obligation, as if I wasn't doing anything special, started to irritate me. Last Thanksgiving was the tipping point. I hosted, not to brag, but because I finally had a house large enough to accommodate everyone. I had it catered, cleaned up, and built up a fire pit in my backyard. Nobody offered to help, even with the dishes. Adam offered a toast midway through, commenting about how fortunate we are to have each other, and how family always comes through, never once mentioning that I paid for the entire event. Mia had brought her new lover and barely looked up from her phone. And my father? He spent the entire evening discussing how things were tougher back then, and how much easier things are now for children. I swallowed it all with a smile, but within I was already withdrawing. Then came the night when everything fell apart. It was a random Tuesday, probably 2 months later. I'd just ended a long meeting and returned home to a voice message from my father. His voice was clipped, tired and cutting, like only parents can be. He responded, "All you do is take. You've never given this family anything worth remembering. If you had any pride, you'd stop acting like we owe you something and just leave." It stunned me. For a moment I believed I had misheard it, so I played it again. I didn't yell, "All you do is take." I did not call back. I just stared at the message for a bit before walking over to the window and looking out at the city lights I used to enjoy. Something inside me softly gave up, like an old hinge snapping underweight. That night, I packed my stuff and fled. No dramatic farewell, no announcement. I even instructed my assistant to pause all outgoing payments from family accounts. Simply a clean, silent separation. 3 days passed, then 1 week. The radio is silent. Nobody called. Nobody texted. It took them about a month to notice. Mia was the first. She called me late one Friday night, her voice shaking. "Liam, hey, I just logged into the school portal and my tuition didn't go through this month. Did something happen with the account?" I could hear the worry she was attempting to suppress, that faux, casual tone you adopt when you're trying not to appear desperate. I responded with a single text message. Though I never gave this family anything. There was no follow-up or explanation. She did not react, but within an hour, I had 4 missed calls from my mother, 2 from Adam, and 1 from a number I did not recognize. My dad's voicemail was darkly comical. "Liam, we need to talk. Whatever this little stunt is, it's not funny. Your sister's future is on the line. No apologies, only demands. The same old tone that indicated, you owe us. That weekend, I flew to Denver. I had never been before, but I needed to feel as if I had escaped from orbit. I stayed in a little Airbnb with a view of the mountains, slept better than I had in years, and avoided checking email for the first time in a long time. I did not open any messages. I allowed the world to spin without me. And what about back home? That's where everything started to fall apart. Mia's school issued a notice of potential withdrawal due to non-payment. Adam's car, which remained unpaid, was repossessed. My parents' mortgage payment bounced. And with that, the foundation they had built on my quiet shattered wide apart. They began contacting distant family members, explaining their version of events, how I abruptly cut them off and abandoned my obligations. But you can't reinvent a story when so many people already know the reality. And some of my cousins? They knew. They have witnessed the pattern for years. I received a note from one of them. Emma, my mother's niece. She replied, I've always admired how patient you are. But I'm glad you finally stopped being their safety net. That message impacted me harder than I expected. Because the truth is that I didn't seek vengeance. I desired peace. But after you remove the tool they use to control you, when they realize they need you more than you ever needed them, the real unraveling begins. I spent a week in Denver, largely doing nothing. Every morning I'd walk to a small coffee shop near the Airbnb, journal for a few minutes, and then meander about downtown to remind myself what uninterrupted solitude felt like. There was no buzzing phone, no obligation, and no one begging, can you just do me one more favor? It seemed strange at first, as if I had to unlearn the habit of preparing for other people's disappointments. By the second week, I had leased a car and drove to Boulder. I hiked alone, which I'd always wanted to do but never did since every time I scheduled a trip, someone in the family needed a bailout. A faulty air conditioner, an overdue credit card. Mia once called from a Cancun resort, stating she had misplaced her wallet and wanted me to wire her emergency funds. That recollection came to mind as I stood at the brink of a cliff walk, wind biting through my jacket. The entire valley stretched out underneath me. I actually laughed out loud. It resonated against the cliffs. It took 3 weeks for my mom to break the silence with something more than passive-aggressive voicemails. She emailed me. The subject line read, "We need you to come home." There was no greeting, just a long block of text that began, "I don't know what's gotten into you," and spiraled into, "Your father is furious." Then, "We've done so much for you," and ended, "Family doesn't abandon family." I stared at it for a long time. Family does not abandon family, unless they do. They always made me feel like a debit card with a heartbeat. Every birthday they forgot. Every time they took money from me without saying thank you. Every holiday, I sat in the background as Adam delivered his speeches, and Mia was showered with gifts. They called it tradition, not desertion. I didn't respond. Instead, I emailed the email to Daniel, my lawyer, who had assisted me in establishing a trust fund several years earlier. I instructed him to begin the process of transferring the remaining tuition payments to a scholarship program for first-generation college students, those who truly needed assistance. They wouldn't laugh behind my back while depleting my financial account. I also requested him to look into who was listed on the deed for the lake cottage, which my parents used every year, and that I had paid off in full under the false premise that it would be a shared family investment. It turns out that my name was still on the documents. So, I made a decision. That Sunday morning I scheduled a flight back home. Not to reconcile, not to feel guilty, but to gather receipts. I didn't inform anyone I was coming. I arrived about noon, picked up a rented car, and drove straight to the house. The same one I helped remodel when Dad threatened to sell it, unless someone paid to repair the water damage. It looked the same. Familiar and artificial. Like a movie set designed to look like a home. As I drove up the driveway, I noticed Adam's old pickup parked outside. I assumed he moved back in following the repossession. I did not knock. I walked in with the spare key my mother had forgotten I had. When I walked into the living room, I heard conversations. "He's being dramatic," Adam said. "He'll come crawling back once he gets over himself." Mia's voice grew quieter. "I don't understand why he's doing this. I mean, it's not a lot of money for him, is it?" my father growled something I couldn't quite understand. Following that, it was clear. Liam's always been the weakest, hiding behind his computer, acting like money makes him special. I stood in the corridor, invisible, as they continued to tear me apart, as if I weren't the reason the lights were turned on. I did not cry. I did not storm in. I didn't even feel angry, just confirmation. They never saw me. Not really. I discreetly pulled out and drove to the lake cottage. I entered through the front door, took one long look at the open-plan kitchen, the wall of family portraits that didn't include one of myself, and began taking images for the real estate listing. By dark, my lawyer had everything he needed to start the deal. It was Saturday. On Monday, I left a farewell message on the family group chat. You said I never gave this family anything, so I'm finally giving you what you've always acted like you wanted. Distance. No more tuition. No more car payments. No more roof repairs. Sell your own memories. I'm out. I exited the group chat and blacklisted everyone. I assumed that would be the end of it. But what I didn't anticipate was how deep the web of dependence had become. And how quickly it would unravel. Mia faced expulsion within a week after I cut every thread. Adam was dismissed for missing too many shifts while attempting to figure things out. My parents' bank called with queries about a mortgage they couldn't afford. And me? I was already halfway to the airport for a fresh journey, this time to Tokyo. First class. There is no guilt. There are no strings. But what about the real kicker? What occurred the next time they attempted to crawl back? I was somewhere over the Pacific when my phone finally caught up with the mayhem I'd left behind. Dozens of missed calls, voicemails from numbers I didn't recognize, most likely Mia's pals, or someone attempting to calm me down on my family's behalf. My father sent emails that appeared to be threats, but rapidly devolved into frantic half-sentences like, "We didn't mean it that way," and "You're still our son." The latter made me giggle. I did not listen to a single voicemail or open any of the attachments. I just saw the notifications pile up like a quiet slideshow of panic. It's amazing how those who think they've never contributed anything suddenly realize how much they gave once it's gone. Tokyo was everything I needed. Clean, quiet, and inconspicuous. I went past temples and neon-lit arcades, allowing my mind to breathe in ways I hadn't imagined possible. There is no guilt dragging on my shoulders, no unexpected emergencies. For the first time in my life, I was just me. Not someone's backup plan. Not the family's fixer. 2 weeks into the trip, I had only unlocked one person. Emma, my cousin. Throughout the entire aftermath, she had only sent one message. No pleading. There's no drama. Just say, "When you're ready to talk, I'm here." Not to persuade you, but to listen. I met up with her once I returned. We sat in a cafe near her apartment, and she had brought her laptop. "I want to show you something," she explained, sliding it across the table. It was, strangely enough, a Reddit thread. Mia had posted on a throwaway account, begging for financial assistance to stay in school due to an unanticipated family situation. She told a scenario that depicted me as the unstable one, claiming I abandoned the family for no reason and was suffering a breakdown. People donated money. Strangers. Emma gazed at me with a stiff lip. "She has raised nearly $6,000 thus far. I figured you should know." I glanced at the screen, my stomach twisting with sadness rather than fury. There it was again. The same story molded to fit the victim role, but this time she was doing it openly, monetizing it, and weaponizing strangers' sympathy. Worst of all, she still didn't realize what she had done. That night, I did not express my wrath or confront her directly. I did something quieter. I grabbed screenshots of every payment I'd made for her schooling, including bank transfers, tuition receipts, and the textbook money I wired during her freshman year. I shared these on a private Imgur album. No names, no dramatic captions, only dates, money amounts, and payment confirmations. Then I left an anonymous comment on the thread. "Before you donate, maybe ask where the other $90,000 went." When assistance is no longer available, some people forget who assisted them. It did not become viral. It did not need to. However, within 24 hours, moderators removed her post for suspicious conduct, and the comments changed. That was the first significant consequence any of them faced. The second occurred a week later, when I received a certified letter in my workplace. It was from my father, not handwritten, but typed, like a legal notice. It began, "We are formally requesting a meeting to discuss the breakdown of our family dynamic." I nearly choked laughing, as if they were attempting to hold a board meeting to repair what they had broken. But hidden in the legalese was the real reason they contacted us. They wanted a share of the revenues from the lake house sale. They apparently believed they had emotional equity in the property. I passed the letter to Daniel without saying anything. He read it, smirked, and added, "Would you like me to give them a reminder that emotional equity is not legally binding?" I nodded. We then went one step further and emailed them a copy of the original agreement. When I first volunteered to pay for the lake cottage, one father had already signed years before. It clearly stated, in his own words, "I accept that this home was purchased by, and will remain the property of Liam, last name. I release all future claims." He had forgotten. Or I hoped I did. That letter effectively silenced them. But the silence did not last. Not once did word get out that I was also selling the main house. See, when I was in Tokyo, Daniel and I were working on a modest side project. Years ago I borrowed a considerable sum under a verbal arrangement when they couldn't keep up with their home payments. They had never paid me back. Daniel kept track of every deposit, collated all wire transfers, and we filed a lien on the house. They now owed me more than $80,000, which allowed me to lawfully force a sale. Emma called me that night. "Liam, they're panicking. Your mother called me in tears. Your father is threatening to go on social media." I exhaled. "Allow him. I have receipts. Let's see who wins the PR battle." But I didn't tell her that I wasn't doing it for vengeance anymore. I was doing it for closure, because none of them recognized that I had given them everything. My time, my savings, my loyalty. And they had misinterpreted it all as weakness. They imagined I was a faucet they could turn on any time they were thirsty. And now they were discovering what thirst truly feels like. And yet, the most rewarding moment had yet to come. Because the day the house went up for sale, I walked through the front door for the final time. I parked across the street on the morning of the auction. The air had that biting, stagnant chill that hung over our neighborhood in early autumn. I sat in the car for a minute, simply watching. It was weird to see my childhood home, which had absorbed so much history, love and misery, suddenly with a simple white sign on the front lawn. Notice of foreclosure. Auction today. No trespassing. I got out, hands in my pockets, and walked slowly toward the house. The door was already opened. Daniel was inside, conversing with the auctioneer, a middle-aged lady with a clipboard and a no-nonsense demeanor. He nodded when he noticed me. "You don't have to be here for this," he replied kindly. "I wanna be," I answered. So I did. Not for revenge. Not for the show. But this moment demanded a witness. Someone to see it, feel it, and ensure it didn't slip away like everything else I'd eaten over the years. I strolled slowly across the living room, as if I was trying to take it all in one more time. Adam tossed a baseball inside, which left a dent in the hardwood. The faded smear on the carpet from when Mia dropped nail paint and blamed it on me. My parents used to put up report cards and drawings on this wall, until they discreetly stopped adding mine. It was weird to see so little of myself here. As if I had been a ghost in my own family saga. I entered the kitchen next. That one struck harder. I recall late evenings helping Mom prepare for holiday dinners, cleaning dishes while she pretended not to hear Dad yelling in the next room, and joking with Emma about burnt pies and undercooked turkeys. And now it was just a kitchen. A box of walls and discarded effort. There was still a photo on the counter of the entire family, taken 2 Christmases ago, at my expense. I remembered paying the photographer's deposit, wearing matching attire, and being cropped out when the shot was put online. I picked up the photograph, stared at it for a long time, and then flipped it face down. By noon a few cars began to arrive. A few serious bidders, some interested neighbors, and lastly, my family. They arrived in Dad's old Chevy, packed in like a twisted family road trip. Mia was the first out, her face blotchy and her red-rimmed eyes hidden beneath huge sunglasses. Adam followed, scowling, evidently only here to play enforcer. Then my parents. Mom appeared worn down, 10 years older than the last time I saw her. Dad. He still strolled as if he owned the ground. He recognized me quickly. "Liam," he said, his voice low and seething. "We need to talk. Now." I did not move. He stepped up. Adam had stepped behind him like a shadow. "You're really doing this?" Dad inquired. "You're going to humiliate your own family over what exactly? Some perceived slight?" I looked him in the eye for the first time in many years. "It's not a slight," I explained calmly. "It's a pattern. And it ends today." "You ungrateful little," he began, but I raised my hand. "Don't. Just don't." "Mia has joined them now," her voice cracking. "I'm going to lose my scholarship because of this. I had to drop 2 classes already. Why are you doing this to us?" I turned to face her. "I paid for your first 3 years. Every tuition bill. Every textbook. You never said thank you, not once. Instead, you let them convince you I was the problem." "I didn't," she began. "You posted online that I was unstable," I added, taking out my phone. "You lied to strangers for money. And now you want sympathy?" Her face wrinkled. Mom eventually spoke, and her voice was gentle. "Liam, families don't do this to each other." "No," I replied. "Families don't act like this. You took everything. My time, my money, my trust. And when I stopped giving, you called me selfish." The auctioneer's voice rang out sharply and professionally. "We'll begin the auction in 5 minutes." Dad looked around, now unsure of himself. "You can't do this. You wouldn't even have this house if it weren't for us." "You're right," I replied. "So I'm taking it back." They stood there, rooted to the driveway and helpless for the first time in years. I walked away. The house sold within an hour. A retired couple from out of town is seeking a house near their grandchildren. They paid in full. I signed the paperwork, gave Daniel the keys, and didn't look back. 3 weeks later, the moving truck arrived. My parents attempted to dispute it, arguing that they had rights. But the court order was clear. They had 30 days from the date of sale. No exclusions. They did not even pack everything. They simply took what they could and left the rest in piles. Years of junk, boxes of old trophies, broken appliances, and forgotten memories. One of the movers discovered my high school journal stowed away in a box labeled junk. I flipped through it. Every page was filled with goals: attend college, start a business, buy a home, and care for my family. It's funny how none of those dreams ended the way I expected. I donated the furniture and demolished the rest. Emma assisted me in closing out the estate. She was the only one who remained objective throughout it all, and the only one I trusted. She hugged me for quite some time after it was over. "You did the right thing," she said softly, "even if it doesn't feel like it yet." And she was correct. It did not feel wonderful in the typical sense. There was no soaring victory or ultimate confrontation with slow clapping applause, only silence. A piercing, resounding silence gradually gave way to tranquility. I moved soon after that, bought a loft in another city. Smaller and simpler, but mine. No hidden bills, no guilt. The calls eventually ended. The emails dried up. Over time, even the bitterness disappeared. I didn't detest them. I just unplugged, as if breaking the final thread of a tattered rope that had been dragging me beneath for years. One night I sat on my balcony, sipping tea and watching the lights flicker in the building across the street. Last Thanksgiving, I thought about Adam's toast, and how they all grinned as if they were in a commercial, blissfully ignorant that the glue holding them together was crumbling. And then I realized something. They were never truly a family. They were a system that only functioned as long as I remained quiet, useful, and little. And now, they now had to learn to stand without me. I received a communication a few months later, an email from Mia. "I don't expect a response," it stated. "I just wanted to say I understand now. And I apologize." I read it twice, then once more, then I archived it. Not out of spite, but because I no longer required closure from them. I already had it from myself. For the first time in my life, that was sufficient.